after posting a rise in year-on-year quarterly sales of around 55%, Biome Australia is poised for further growth, and for a microcap, it's been very forthcoming about its future growth plans via its Vision 27 strategic plan. If you're unfamiliar with it, Biome Australia is a first mover in clinically tested targeted probiotics. Year to date, its share price is up more than 200%, making that 400% over the past year. So to explain what might make this stock a 10-bagger in the future, Blair Norfolk, co-founder and CEO, and Paul Hart of Canary Capital joined me a little bit earlier. Now, I began by asking if the rapid growth in demand for probiotics actually has legs.
Well, I suppose firstly, what is a probiotic? So probiotics are a living microorganism that, if properly manufactured in pharmaceutical style good manufacturing practice facilities, will infer a benefit on the host. So there is actually a World Health Organization definition of probiotics. As a category within complementary medicine, it's been the highest growth category for almost a decade now and looks to continue to be so. And the core reason why is the products work. They're not a general, quote unquote, health supplement. They are backed by randomized, placebo-controlled, double-blind clinical trials in many cases. So it's really a halfway point that we see between traditional complementary medicine, which might be a multivitamin, for example, and a pharmaceutical. So all of our products are studied through pharmaceutical-style clinical trials. The difference is we have the safety benefits of complementary medicines with the benefit of outcomes focused more like, serious health conditions or even diseases.
And Blair, just to flesh that out a little bit, what is it that makes Biome Australia product market leading? Like, what is novel about what you offer?
So the market has been, as I said, exploding for a long time, but that has been at the more generic end of the space. So when we moved away from nutraceuticals that we did prior around 2016, before founding Biome Australia, we started getting involved in fairly significant R&D and clinical research within understanding specific strains of bacteria. So when you'd seen a probiotic in the supermarket or in a discount pharmacy chain or even on Amazon, traditionally and almost in all cases, there'll be a blend of multi-strains in a higher dose, and they are targeting general health and wellness. They don't have a specific outcome or a clinical trial on the finished product. Where Biome entered the market with activated probiotics when we finally launched back in 2019, what we did, our point of difference, our positioning is we're first mover in condition or disease specific. And how we tackle that approach or that challenge is we started to understand individual strains of bacteria, their unique mechanism of action, and how they can support patients with different conditions or diseases. I'll give you one example. The first clinical trial that we got involved with was on pediatric allergic asthma. We have spoken about this many times because it was really the foundation of who we are and who we wanted to be as first mover in the world of targeted probiotics. 440 children in a clinical trial back in 2019. 220 took our probiotic, Biome Breathe, which is a very specific strain of bacteria called Lactobacillus salivarius LSO1 in a clinical dose of only 1 billion. 220 children were on the placebo. So it was a randomized, placebo-controlled, double-blind study. Over 6 months of the intervention, we saw a 64% reduction in asthma. So Biome's positioning is quite obvious once you start to understand it. We have disease-style research on safe interventions. So, there isn't really any other brands in the world that have been able to amass that much research. There are some people starting to move into the space around the US or Canada or European markets where the market's a bit more advanced, certainly in consumer and patient and medical understanding. But we position ourselves as the experts in being able to explain how these bacteria work and used in a clinical setting through doctors and pharmacists.
All right, so that is a bit of an introduction to Biome Australia. For those of you out there that haven't been familiar with the company already, Paul Hart from Canary Capital, how long have you been following Biome Australia, and what sort of attracted you to the company in the first instance?
So we've been following it at Canary Capital since before the IPO. What attracted us to the company was the people and the products. It's unique in terms of having a range of 18 condition-specific probiotics, which are backed by clinical research, as Blair alluded to. Clinical research which shows that they actually work, Also, there's a number of other things. The way they use an education model to educate pharmacists and practitioners to be able to recommend the products to their clients. So if in effect you'll end up having thousands of people recommending Biome probiotics, which doesn't cost the company a lot of money.
Okay.
There's also some other things like encapsulation technology. Yeah, there's a lot of things that attracted us to the company, but we see it as being really globally scalable.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and we'll get into some of those plans because, Blair, you've outlined Vision 27. Biome Australia it's got about 153, say, $1 million market cap, so it's a micro cap. I think it's really unique that you've really clearly laid out your ambitions for the next couple of years. Blair, why did you do that?
So look, firstly, we're very confident in our growth and what's to come. So we want to show we've got a proven track record now. Since listing in November 2021, we've set a foundation of bringing the company from a small 2 million turnover business to turning over 13 million and reaching cash flow and EBITDA positivity over the last few quarters. So we wanted to get to that milestone, but growth has actually increased over the last year. So we went 75% growth in FY23 to FY24. And then at the end of FY25, we actually saw about 80% growth. So we felt very confident to put out a 3-year revenue guidance of 75 to 85 million cumulative revenue over the next 3 years, FY25 to FY27. What we're seeing is, though, we've only so far unlocked about 40% of the pharmacy market in Australia. So we believe we can actively double our distribution footprint. But at the same time, that 40%, we've only developed about a third of it. So based on that, we see a huge amount of opportunity left in the Australian market. International expansion, we've got a very unique strategy as well, and we're quite happy to lay that down and share what that process is, how we go through an initial, I suppose, review of a market to test out their pharmacy industry, how sophisticated they are. The medical industry, are they confident to talk about things like probiotics and recommend them to their patients? We trialled this model in the UK and Ireland 2 to 3 years ago now as a test market. Once we got enough sell-through, and we did this on a very lean OPEX model, it was running at essentially break-even the whole time. We then had enough confidence to push it into health retail, being the pharmacies and health food stores in that market. We're now looking to replicate that model in Canada, with a recent launch only of the last couple of weeks. I'm actually over there right now, hence why we're dialing in over Skype than being in your studio today, as we would rather be. But that's a key component. We're also expanding the range into other therapeutics beyond probiotics. We've had several products that are wonderful, clinically backed, clinically validated products that will help patients with conditions beyond the gut, but they didn't quite meet the criteria to be an activated probiotic within our activated probiotic brand. So international market expansion, extending the range over the next 3 years. But one of the most interesting components is what we're going to do at home in Australia. So we believe we found a way to unlock the pharmacy dispensary, being that our products are safe, they have no known drug interactions, and we have disease-style, pharmaceutical-style research on different conditions and diseases. So what that means is we're working to unlock that dispensary of 330 million prescriptions a year on the PBS, and working with pharmacists and their dispensary teams, as well as GPs and other medical specialists, to start recommending probiotics alongside different medications for patients. So the idea is improving the health outcome for the patient, reducing side effects, and also, giving them a commercial opportunity to improve their business.
I would love to keep fleshing out the Vision 27 to more detail, but let's just go to Paul now, because I would like to know how you approach, what's your investment criteria for investing in a company like Biome that is growing rapidly, but still, one would presume, what Blair says, at the beginning of a long journey?
So at Canary, we take a very long-term view of the companies that we invest in. We do extensive DD, which Blair is very well aware of because he's been through that process way back at the start. We've got 6 pillars that we look at. We look at people, which is really important. So the management of the company. Is the strategy of the company clear? Is the business scalable? Can it be taken global into different markets? Are there barriers to entry? And barriers to entry is a really important one. So usually we'd be happy if there's one or two, but in Biome's case, we see that they've got four. They've got the clinical research, which is very hard to replicate. They've got the education model for practitioners and pharmacists or pharmacy personnel, the encapsulation technology, which ensures that more of the product gets into the large intestine where it's going to do its magic. And also the range of the products is very hard for any competitors to replicate. The other two are we look for companies which are nearing cash flow or have a clear path towards cash flow and profitability. And the final one that we look for is investments that are going to provide our clients with significant returns. Multiple upside is what we look for.
And so there are compelling reasons to invest in Biome now. Yes. And what are those? Do you want to capture that upside?
Yeah, so look, in our latest research report that we've just released in September, research update, we've got a price target on Biome of $1.10 per share versus the current price in the high 60s. The company is clearly in a very rapid growth phase. Sales have been growing strongly over recent years. 2022 was 4.1, 23, 7.2, 24, 13. We see the potential in the next 5 years for the company to be turning over north of $70 million in sales. That's going to lead to a significant increase of valuation. At the same time, the company will be generating significant free cash flow, and we expect it to be highly profitable. EBITDA margins based on our modelling should be around the 25 to 30%. So all those things will drive the valuation further. And the company moving into new markets like in Europe and North America, like Canada, we think that's only going to fuel growth further.
Yeah, Blair, well, on that overseas expansion, which is fundamental to this Vision 27, I know that you've got a very strong education piece here in Australia with the pharmacies, with doctors, with health practitioners, like naturopaths. You've done this very well in Australia. But as you plan to build a business, in New Zealand, in the UK, Ireland, and Canada, how can you be sure you'll be able to engage with professionals in those markets to the same extent and have the same success in that way?
It's a fantastic question. And as I started to allude to, it comes down to our initial market assessment of a country. So, for example, what's the healthcare system like in general? Is there a good rebate structure? Are health professionals actively re-educating themselves, or are they sitting back and, just relying on whatever the government is telling them to do? So when we looked at Canada as a market entry strategy, Health Canada has been designed very similarly and effectively based on the TGA in Australia. So it is a very high barrier to entry. You must have clinical trials, but they do allow health claims, unlike some other markets. And you've got a very well educated practitioner model. So the example in Canada is the naturopaths, as we have in Australia, in Canada are actually doctors. So they're naturopathic doctors that go through 8 to 10 years of university. They're very sharp, they're very well educated, and they're very interested in an integrative approach with their patients. So we do look for those type of markets. And when you asked me before about China, why aren't we going after the Daigou channel like a lot of the vitamin industry? Because it is a volume market. It's also less sophisticated. You've got consumers that are looking for, trends and, new exciting ingredients that are marketed by celebrities. Whereas North America and the European market, you've got highly educated consumers and health professionals that are actively already talking to patients about products. So a market like China, in 5 or 6 years, it will probably getting more aligned to the other markets we work within. But we look for those type of health professionals, then we educate them. So we're only 6 weeks into our launch in Canada. I spent about 3 weeks on the road over there, and the signs are very strong. The barriers to entry are higher than Australia, and we're seeing a lot of excitement from the local health professionals, and there's really no comparable products in those markets. So little old Australia is quite an advanced market. We do have very progressive and forward-thinking general practitioners, naturopaths, pharmacists that do talk about these type of products. But North America and Europe is quite similar. So we do a lot of DD on the markets, and then we make sure that we can deliver on the education model. But why that's so important is not every market has health claims as well on a product. So we're going on with a huge strategic advantage over local companies that don't have the education model. Because in Europe, for example, there are no health claims. You just have a probiotic sitting on a shelf in a pharmacy. You don't have any health claims. You can't even use the word probiotic on it. So an advantage to us to come into the market and work directly with the health professionals to recommend the product means we think we can capture market share a lot faster than we even did in Australia.
Now, we can't have this conversation without talking about risks. I would imagine one would be if you lost a big pharmacy contract, if somebody new came into the market. What about supply chains, Paul? What do you see as the biggest risks?
So Biome products are supplied by three main suppliers. The biggest is in Italy. That's one of our risks that we cover in our research report. The good thing about Biome is that the top 70% of products which account for 70% of sales are actually owned by the company. So that's a good thing. And the others, Blair, they generally are on 5-year exclusivity deals, which Blair rolls over usually every 18 months, 2 years. So from that point of view, the company's products are safe from competitors.
Okay. And Paul, reading through your research report, which, by the way, we've had a question from one of our viewers asking if they can access this research report. Do you make that publicly available?
Yes, people can go to our website, www.canarycapital.com.au, and on the homepage there will be a link to the Biome research report, which they can download and read.
Okay, thank you for sharing that. Can you explain your view? I thought this was quite interesting about the IP development part of the business. Is that sort of blue sky? Is that in your calculations when you arrive at its valuation or not?
We haven't actually accounted for any valuation on the IP, which is good in a way because it just provides more upside for investors. In terms of what it means for the company, I'll probably leave Blair to comment more on that. But from our point of view, we see it as a really good opportunity to further reduce the risk and make sure that the top products of Biome are actually owned by the company. Therefore, they're not subject to competitors coming to try and take them off the company. But Blair, you might want to talk a little bit more about the IP and give an example of the valuation, the potential valuation.
Yeah, look, absolutely. So, I mean, IP also plays into the risk point. So to take a step back, I mean, the pharmaceutical contracts you mentioned, Nadine, that, could be at risk. Activated Probiotics is the highest growth brand in the entire market, and we have been for several years. So, when we get to our annual reviews with Terry White, Kmart or Priceline, it's usually quite an enjoyable conversation with them asking for more products and offering us more shelf space. So obviously that's not a guarantee, but things are tracking very well and they are very happy with us. When it comes to IP, it's been a point that's come up since starting the business many, many years ago. We wanted to make sure if we didn't own it, we would have an exclusive license. Traditionally in our industry, in the vitamin or probiotic category, most brands just do contract manufactured products. It'll be more generic and they'll sell based on advertising and marketing deals or discounts. As Biome is an outcome-focused company and the products deliver specific improvements in health conditions, we wanted to make sure we had these locked down, that we wouldn't grow a market, unlock this idea of condition-specific, and then have one of the big companies come in and take it off us. So the only way to long-term protect that was to do our own IP development. So we did release to market back in December that we're developing our own strains, the first one named BMB18. There will be an update on that to the market very shortly. But the idea of this is to, allow that strain to go into all of our other products, including ones that we only have on exclusive license, not ones that are in, the 70% of our sales volume that we own, to further protect them, to make it impossible to ever replicate the exact product. So that strain development program will also support long-term new product development, other launches. And when it comes to IP value, what Paul was passing on to me, there are examples. There is a strain that's owned by Novonesis, formerly Christian Hansen, the largest company on the Danish stock market. They bought that strain from some Finnish researchers. It's called Lactobacillus rhamnosus GG for about 75 million euros about 6 years ago. So the value of a probiotic strain is very significant. I think on the low end, there are estimates of, at least 5 to 10 million once developed and some research backing them. So it is a very material thing for a company of, as you said, 150 million market cap to have some IP to further support that growth in market cap over the coming years.
Yeah, interesting. Okay. Only in the interest of time, Paul, where do you realistically see Biome Australia in a few years' time?
Well, based on our projections, as I said earlier, we see the growth in sales continuing and the move to significant profits occurring over the next 5 years. We see the businesses being potentially at least $70 million of turnover, 22 million of EBITDA. So it's likely to become highly profitable as the growth continues. I've always had the comparison since I started looking at this company that one day it could become another Blackmores, and my view on that has not changed. The company's always hit it's exceeded all its targets, which has been fantastic for investors. And that's shown in the recognition by the market in terms of pushing up the market cap. Now, I would see in the next 5 years, if they could keep hitting their targets, the share price will be likely multiples of where it is today at 68 cents. So it could be, it'll have a dollar sign in front of it and could be several dollars, I would think.
Yeah, because this is not the first strategic plan that Biome Australia has brought to market. And yeah, they've beat targets laid out previously. So as an investor, that must tick a box. All right, Blair, again, only in the interest of time, what's next? Like, what's the next catalyst for potential investors?
So look, we position ourselves as the microbiome experts and, bar none, the people that understand probiotics, that have developed trust with doctors, with pharmacists, with naturopaths. So using that trust and using that, clinical background and understanding in our space, we see, the opportunity to launch into new markets is there. But, probiotics don't just need to be for the conditions we're using now. So I can't say too much as a public company, but we look to expand into potentially other microbiomes in other fields and looking to continually develop the Australian market. So as Paul said, we have very big ambitions. There will be significant market flow information coming to market shareholders with updates on our progress of international markets on IP. The 4C is still due this month as well. So there should be plenty of opportunities for people to ask questions and learn more about the business from that news flow that will be coming out.